Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Department of Pharmacology and Toxicology webinar today about graduate studies. My name is Ali Salapur. I'm a professor in the Department of Pharmacology and Toxicology. I'm also the Associate Graduate Coordinator. So I'm going to be talking to you about graduate studies in pharmacology and toxicology. So our presentation today, this is the outline. We're going to talk a little bit about what pharmacology is. So we'll have an introduction. There will be a portion about careers in pharmacology and toxicology, and we'll go through the graduate programs in our department, master's and PhD, and we'll cover how you can go ahead and apply to our department, what is the application process, what are the tips for strong application, and how to be successful in our program. So a couple of words, some definitions about what pharmacology is and what toxicology is. So pharmacology is essentially the study of action of drugs and their efficacy. It's also the use of drugs as therapeutic agents in medicines as tools in the scientific research, and of course the development and regulation of pharmaceutical agents and other therapeutic products. In our department, we also have toxicology, which is a cognate scientific field that is related to pharmacology. And in toxicology, we are doing the study of harmful biological effects of chemicals, and it's also the study of mechanisms by which these chemicals cause toxicity and ways to prevent or reduce these harmful effects. In addition to therapeutic agents, toxicologists study many chemicals found in the environment that either originate in the nature or are synthesized by humans. So these are the two main focuses of our department, which is pharmacology and toxicology. Now I want to take the time to tell you about some of the research fields that are undertaken in our department in pharmacology and toxicology. And this is going to be relevant to some of you who are interested in various research fields, so you have a better idea of some of the field of research that is covered in our department. The first one that I want to talk to you about is the field of biochemical and molecular pharmacology, which is an area that is heavily covered in our department by various professors and scientists. This field makes the study of this field is to use molecular strategies and techniques to define the mechanism action of drugs. Okay, so for example, we're talking about investigating how chemical structures correlates with drug efficacy, or how drugs rectify biochemical abnormalities in illness or disease. Another field of research that is covered in our department is cardiovascular pharmacology. As the name says it, this is the study of the effects of drug on the heart, on the vascular system, and those parts of the nervous and endocrine system that participate in regulating the cardiovascular function. So essentially, we're talking about studying drug actions on cardiac function, arterial pressure, blood flow, and so on. Another very important field of research in our department, which is undertaken by many scientists and professors, is clinical pharmacology. This field bridges basic pharmacology and clinical medicine, including pediatrics, internal medicine, anesthesia, and psychiatry. And the field strives to provide key information for rational therapeutics in clinical medicine in order to significantly impact health policy and healthcare delivery. The field also encompasses studies of drug delivery and drug efficacy in human subjects and patients, as well as pharmacoepidemiology, pharmacoeconomics, and bioinformatic approaches. Another important field of pharmacology is drug metabolism and pharmacokinetics. And so the study of factors that impact drug concentration at the site of action in the body is the field of drug metabolism and pharmacokinetics. Under drug metabolism and biotransformation, we're essentially studying the conversion of one chemical into another. Pharmacokinetics, on the other hand, involves the study of drug and metabolite concentrations in the blood and body fluids, and this is often done in mathematical terms to determine time courses, half-lives of drug action in the body. Another important field of research in pharmacology is drug addiction studies, which is an important field that is covered by our department as well. And this field focuses on drugs which cause dependence, including both legal or clinical drugs, or compounds that are not clinical. Here we're looking at studies that are going to look at mechanisms and risk factors that alter drug-taking behavior, as well as the consequence of drug exposure. Endocrine pharmacology, which is also covered by our department, is essentially the study of drugs that are hormones or hormone derivatives, or drugs that may modify the synthesis or action of normally secreted hormones. Immunopharmacology is another field that is covered by our faculty, and this is the study of drugs designated to either suppress or augment the immune system. Another major area of research in our department is neuropharmacology and psychopharmacology. And essentially in neuropharmacology, these are studies that study the effects of drugs on the nervous system, including the brain, spinal cord, and the nerves that carry information to and from different parts of the body. In behavior and psychopharmacology, we're studying the effect of drugs on behaviors and cognitive functions. Another important area of research in our department includes pharmacokinetics. And this is the study, this field studies the relation between gene variations and phenotypes associated with therapeutic or toxic responses to drugs and other foreign chemicals in human populations. So essentially, in this field, scientists are studying whether genetic variations within a population affects drug responsiveness or toxicity. We have a general theme of receptor pharmacology. Essentially, all drugs act on receptors, and receptors can be broadly defined as proteins within the body that receive, detect, and bind various chemical signals, such as drugs. So receptor pharmacology is essentially an essential part of pharmacology, and it's covered under all the different fields of research that I just discussed about. Second messengers and signal transduction is another area of research that is covered by many different fields in pharmacology. So we know that many therapeutic agents regulate signal transduction system in our cells, and some of the signal transduction systems that are relevant to drug actions include, but these are not limited to, adenyl cyclases, second messengers, enzymatic regulation, MAP kinase pathway, receptor tyrosine kinase pathways, steroid hormone receptor regulation, and so on and so forth. And all these second messenger pathways are studied by various scientists under the various themes that I was discussing about earlier. A second branch of research in our department is toxicology, which is a very important branch in our department. And as I talked earlier, toxicology is the science that deals with the harmful effects of chemical agents on biological systems and the means to prevent or reduce such effects. When we talk about toxic effects, we could be looking at disturbances in growth patterns. We could be talking about discomfort. We could be talking about development of disease or death of individuals. Or this could be talking about the effects of toxic compounds on whole ecosystems. The exogenous chemicals that are studied in toxicology could be drugs, or could be compounds that are synthesized by humans, or agents that are originating in nature. Okay, so now that we've covered some of the areas of research in our department, this gives you a sense of whether you can find a field of research that is of interest to you. More information can be obtained on our website, looking at the profile of each professor in the department and the research topic that they're engaged in. Now let's talk a little bit about some of the career opportunities available to pharmacologists and toxicologists. So the list that is denoted here is not exhaustive. These are just some of the examples of various careers that you could engage in. So the first one on the top is a simple career. It's the academic career, where you engage in graduate studies, master's, followed by PhD, followed by postdoctoral training, and you continue in the academic pathway and you become either a university professor or a community college professor or a teacher in a secondary school. Another career available to students in the pharmacology and toxicology field is the pharmaceutical and the biotechnology industry. So this includes research laboratories, being a clinical studies coordinator, dealing with regulatory affairs, managing or administrating research projects, or being on the business end of things and being involved in business development or venture capital. Another important branch of jobs includes the government. So people with pharmacology and toxicology degrees can engage in governmental jobs, including health protection branches, environmental laboratories, forensic toxicology, and these could be either at the provincial government level or the federal level. Finally, listed here is the biomedical research laboratories that are available, and these are research laboratories that are either at hospitals, universities, or various research institutes where employment can be sought by people having degrees in pharmacology and toxicology. So let's talk a little bit now about the graduate programs that are available in our department. Before getting into the programs per se, I want to give you some numbers about some demographics of our department. So in 2015-2016, we have about 50 graduate faculty members in our department, which means that there are about 50 professors that can be supervisors for master's or PhD thesis. On the whole, the department has about 100 faculty members, but not everybody is a graduate faculty member. The number of students that we had in September 2015 was a total of 90 graduate students, 42 in the master's program and 48 in the PhD program. And these numbers fluctuate year to year based on admittance and students that are graduating. The students that are enrolled in our department, their home laboratories are located in various areas because we have professors and faculty that are affiliated with us from different areas. So we have students that are in the Medical Sciences building at the University of Toronto, but we also have students that conduct their research and have their primary mentors in some of the affiliated hospitals and research institutes. And these hospitals and research institutes include the Center for Addiction and Mental Health, CAMH, the Hospital for Sick Children, the Sunnybrook Health Science Center, the St. Mike's Hospital, and finally the University Health Network Hospitals, which has several hospitals affiliated with it. When we talk about graduate programs in pharmacology, we have two major programs, obviously. We have the master's program in pharmacology and toxicology, and we also have the PhD program in pharmacology and toxicology. With regards to the master's program, we have two streams for the master's. We have either the thesis-based stream, which is what we would consider the classical master's program, but we also have a new program that has been going on for about 2 years, which is called the Applied Clinical Pharmacology Master's Program, which is a course-based master's program, where you don't need to do a thesis project. There is a research component to applied clinical pharmacology, but there is no thesis per se, and there is no need for a thesis supervisor. There is another major distinction between the thesis-based masters and the applied clinical pharmacology, where the thesis-based master requires a supervisor. It also comes with stipendial support. The applied clinical pharmacology has no supervisor, and there's no stipendial support. So we can discuss a little bit more about these two different streams of masters a little bit later. Of course, after the master's, we have the PhD program. And when it comes to the PhD program, there are various ways of entering the PhD program. So we can have what is called the normal entry in quotation. Normal entry essentially means that an individual who has already obtained a master's in science is applying to our PhD program. And I said master's in science because you don't necessarily need to have a master's in pharmacology to apply to a PhD in pharmacology or toxicology. If you have a master's in any other biomedical sciences, biochemistry, immunology, physiology, neuroscience, you can always apply to the PhD program. The second way to gain access to the PhD program is through a PhD transfer. This applies to students who have entered into the thesis-based master's program, and after about 12 to 18 months within their master's thesis program, they decide that now they desire to enter into a PhD, and they want to continue in the same lab under the same supervisor, working essentially on the same project, but making it more broad, so it's a PhD project. And at that point, students can request a PhD transfer, and there's some criteria that are required for that. Grades are important. Advancement on the research project is important. There's a committee that evaluates the transfer requirement, and in most cases, transfers are granted. The third option to gain access to the PhD program is what we call a direct entry. The direct entry applies to students that have just finished their bachelor's degrees, and they have a desire to engage into a PhD program immediately without even going through the master's. The criteria for entering a direct PhD program are a little bit higher. I'll mention them shortly. And this again, is dependent on the student, and it requires for the student to be sure about the project and the supervisor that they have chosen, and of course, vice versa, from the supervisor to be willing to commit to the student for a long-term PhD program. I want to tell you again a couple of words about our new master's field, which is the course-based master, so the Applied Clinical Pharmacology Masters. So this is a 2-year course-based program. It is focused on clinical research. There is hands-on training in research skills and techniques. So students in this program will have the opportunity to conduct research. It is just not under a thesis format. And there's also student placement opportunities for students in the ACP program. So we're trying to partner up with industry and stakeholders and various industries involved in healthcare and clinical research, and try to allow these students in this program to have some kind of a working relationship or get some work experience in these industries. So as I said again, just to remind you, the Applied Clinical Pharmacology program is course-based, no thesis, we talked about that, but it's also important to note that there is no stipendial support for this program. So of course, when you come to apply to our programs, you may be asking yourself, should I do a thesis or should I do applied clinical pharmacology? One of the ways to tackle this issue, if you're uncertain, is that when you do your application, you can actually apply to both programs. The criteria of admission to both programs is essentially the same. The same people evaluate the dossiers, and you may get admittance to both of the programs, and then later on, you can decide which program you might want to engage upon. With regards to PhD, one of the questions can be, should I transfer or should I do the direct entry? This again is dependent on the individual. If you are certain of the lab that you have chosen, if you're certain of the supervisor with whom you have engaged your thesis program, you might as well, and if you meet the criteria of eligibility, grades, and so on and so forth, recommendation letters, we'll talk about that in a second, you can decide to go the direct entry. If not, if you prefer starting in a lab as a master's student to learn a little bit for a year and then make sure that you're comfortable with the research program, that you're enjoying the research environment, and you have a good relationship with your mentor, at that point you could try to do a transfer. I just want to say a couple of words about collaborative programs. Once you enter master's and PhD in pharmacology and toxicology, you also have the option to enroll into collaborative programs that are available at University of Toronto. We've listed some of the collaborative programs here, including addiction studies, biomedical toxicology, cardiovascular sciences, neuroscience, resuscitation science, and women's health. And essentially, depending on the field of research that you have chosen, you can enroll in one of these collaborative programs that are relevant to your field. And these collaborative programs allow you to increase your knowledge in that given field. They have specific requirements as well. You may have to take additional courses, attend additional seminars, but it also allows you to broaden your horizon and increase your network of scientists and collaborators. Importantly, the collaborative program in biomedical toxicology is administered through our department, and there are other departments that partake in this program. And here at the bottom, we have the MSc student requirements and PhD student requirements. And as you can see, some of the requirements are additional courses, such as the interdisciplinary toxicology and the graduate seminar in toxicology, and also attending at least 6 seminars related to toxicology. But again, if you are enrolling in a lab or enrolling in a project that is toxicology-based, this could be beneficial to you because it adds to your toxicological knowledge, for example. If you're enrolling in a neuroscience program, the collaborative program in neuroscience can be an important addition. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how to apply to graduate pharmacology. So this is an important slide here where we have the admission requirements to apply to pharmacology and toxicology. So we have two sections. So in section 1, we're essentially discussing about your academic background. So the minimum academic qualifications include a course average of B+ or better in your final year of undergraduate studies. For those of you who are interested in entering a direct PhD, the requirement is actually A-. You should have appropriate background courses and training. So we are looking for students that are coming from biomedical sciences. We're not looking necessarily for students that are coming with an undergraduate in pharmacology and toxicology, but we're definitely looking for students that have a biomedical sciences background, biochemistry, physiology, human health sciences, things like that. We require 3 letters of reference from professors familiar with your aptitude for research. So as we discussed, most of the master's and the PhD is absolutely research-based. The master's, we have the 2 options, course or research. But if you're interested in the research stream, we're clearly interested in recruiting students and giving admittance to the students that have some research credentials and experience. So it is important for you to, as undergraduate students, to gain some research experience and have these professors that have mentored your research programs be able to provide letters of reference. Once you have met all these 3 criteria, you will get an invitation for an interview with a faculty member in our department. And again, here is a chance for you as candidates to make the case why you're interested in a graduate study in pharmacology and toxicology, what makes you a better candidate compared to others, and what are some of the areas that you're interested in pursuing. So serious candidates that are able to communicate clearly their ideas and their passion and interest will have an advantage here for sure. Once you have met all these criteria, you will get what we call a provisional acceptance to the department, and then you need to do the second step. If you decide to go to thesis-based research, which is a master's with thesis or a PhD, then you need to secure a supervisor, and then you need to get acceptance by a supervisor. And of course, this is only for the thesis-based program only. If you decide to go to the advanced clinical pharmacology, you don't need to secure a thesis supervisor. It is important to note that there is financial support for graduate students. This is, again, only applies to the thesis-based students. As of 2014-2015, the minimum departmental stipend for domestic master's students was $25,800 and $27,800 for PhD students. If students are international, the stipends are higher, $37,900 for master's and $39,900 for PhD. And essentially, this is to offset the tuition fee, which is higher for international students. So the financial support that you will receive can come from different sources. This could be in forms of external scholarships, and this is essentially awards that the students need to apply for. So we encourage students to apply early, apply broadly. These are prestigious, and of course, having this money is always good. Currently, we have about 24% of our students that have external awards. In addition to these external awards, another source of the fund for your stipends could be University of Toronto awards, and these are available. And lastly, and this is why you need a supervisor, the support can come from the supervisor's grant. So supervisors have research funding grants, and they can use some of the funds that they have to pay you a stipend according to the minimum that is defined by the departmental regulations. How do you do applications? So essentially, to apply to our program, you do this through the web. So you go to the pharmacology.utoronto.ca webpage. You navigate to programs, graduate pharmacology, prospective students, apply to pharmacology, and then you just engage through the portal and fill in the application. I have put down some of the important deadlines for September 2016 admissions. So for visa students, international applicants, the application deadline is Friday, January 1st, 2016. And that's when you need to choose your program, pay your fees, and start the application. And you have essentially a month to finalize the documentation necessary for your application. So the deadline for documentation is February 1, 2016. For Canadian citizens, permanent residents, or U.S. citizens, the application deadline is Sunday, May 1st, and the documentation deadline is Wednesday, June 1st, 2016. So how do we try to make a strong application? So what are some of the tips for strong application, and why is this important? This is important because of this slide, and I think this is an important slide that I want to just 30 seconds to go over. So here we have some of the statistics about the admissions in 2015 and 2016 to our department. So we had a total of 131 applications for graduate studies. We had a total provisional acceptance of 62. So 62 individuals out of the 131 that applied got the first acceptance. However, we had a total of 39 students entering. So out of the 62, only 39 entered the program. 27 of these students were thesis-based and 12 were within the applied clinical pharmacology program. Okay, so when we talk about a strong application and how to ensure a strong application, let's just revisit this slide that we had before. So clearly you need minimum academic qualifications. So the higher your grades, the better. The requirement is a B+ average, but right now we're having very strong candidates applying, and some of the candidates are coming in have an A- average. The appropriate background and courses are important, so you need to have good background. So when supervisors look at your dossier, they can appreciate that you have the proper knowledge to engage into the research program that they have going on. The letters of reference and your research experience is important. So we encourage undergraduate students who are interested in graduate studies, master's or PhD, to try to get as much research experience as possible. You have a chance to shine within the personal interview. So if you're able to make a case and be articulate and express your knowledge and in a cohesive way about the work that you've carried on and what you want to do later on, this is a moment for you to be able to make the case to one of the faculty members who is interviewing you. And all of this is going to translate into being able to secure a supervisor. And this is what I would call the rate limiting step. So let's just go back to the previous slide. So out of the 62 students that got provisional acceptance, only 27 secured the thesis supervisor. Okay, so this is important, right? So 62 students met criteria number 1, but only 27 were able to get the thesis supervisor. And so this is important, and all of these things go hand in hand. So this is just a slide again to remind you that it is not always fun to be conditionally accepted, be part of those 62 students. But if you wait too long to secure a supervisor, you may not secure one because there are limited spaces. Okay? And so the last slide that I want to go on is about tips for success in the program. So you may wonder, what is it required to succeed as a graduate student in pharmacology? But essentially the things that I'm highlighting here are true for any graduate program you will engage, pharmacology, toxicology, or any other biomedical sciences. Keep getting high marks. Marks are important. It's one way that you're evaluated as an individual. Publish your scientific observations. Publications are always important, and we live in a world where it's important to communicate your findings. If you have high marks, if you have good publication, this will translate into you getting external awards, prestigious awards. Awards are a recognition of your credentials and your ability as a young scientist. And these are 3 things that are key to be successful. And the last one we have here is network. During your graduate studies, you will have the opportunity to work alongside other graduate students, master's, PhD, applied clinical pharmacology. You will also have the opportunity to have mentors such as professors that are in your committees, or professors that are teaching you classes, or professors with whom you do tutorials or take courses with. And these are individuals that can guide you on several ways. They can be able to witness your progress as a young scientist. They can be able to give you guidance about career opportunities. And this is what networking is about establishing social interactions with your environment, and to be able to reciprocate with individuals and have a good idea of having people that can write recommendation letters for you, vouch for you, and help you go forward. So I'd like to finish by saying you're always welcome to contact us. These are the contacts for our department. I'm the Associate Graduate Coordinator, and my colleague, Dr. Peter McPherson, he's the Graduate Coordinator. And we're always here to answer questions and try to guide you through this process. Thank you. Okay, if you have any questions, please, through the webinar, you can, the chat room, please display your questions and I will take them.
Or do you have any questions that any students might want to know?
I can bring up some of the questions that are sometimes asked. I tried to address one. I'll go back to it in a moment. One of the questions is, what are some of the careers that are available? So we went through the slide of the careers. I showed you some of the careers that are available. I would say that students that are in our department, in general, students that are engaging in graduate studies now, master's and PhD, only about 15 to 18% will continue into academia. So academia is not the only route of career opportunity out there. There are many, many other careers that are available. And as I mentioned, there's government, there's the industry, the other careers available. And in general, students that are well-trained, that have achieved good training, have published their work, have done their studies, have good credentials, the ability for students to find jobs is quite high. So at this point, we're not too worried about that. So I would say that opportunities are out there, and the university and our department, we're actually working towards creating new courses to guide students about job searches and job opportunities. And this is something that is coming. Some of the departments already have some courses along those lines, and it's something that we are currently considering in our department.
I have a question from Helen. What are fields you are qualified for in the Applied Pharmacology Professional Graduate Program?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. So it is a research-based degree. So it is going to be a degree in focus in clinical pharmacology. So once you obtain your degree in the applied clinical pharmacology degree, you will be able to apply for jobs that are related to clinical pharmacology. I also want to say that for students that engage into the applied clinical pharmacology program, after 2 years of applied clinical pharmacology, if you're interested in pursuing a PhD, you can apply to a PhD program as well. You will be considered as somebody who has obtained a master's degree in research, and you can then apply for a PhD. So I hope that this answers the question. I try to answer to the best of my ability. So the thing that I wanted to say, I think it's important, is for you guys, for those of you who are interested in the thesis-based programs, master's and PhD, I'm just going to repeat this. I've said it 3 times. I'm going to say it a 4th time, is that you have to understand that getting the provisional acceptance is step number 1. The second step is to secure a supervisor. And that's the challenge, and that's important. So you want to make sure that you have a strong dossier and that you contact supervisors early on in the process, because there are just limited number of positions available. So the provisional acceptance is just part of the whole process of getting accepted.
I guess if they have any further questions too.
If you have any further questions, please do not hesitate to contact us. We're always happy to answer you. Thank you.